in the current environment, in the political climate that we know with the US election, with Brexit, and what we expect in France in 2 days from now, what do you believe, in general terms, the future holds for those international institutions as a whole, and particularly for the European Central Bank?
I think we are experiencing a turning point in history. If you look back after the Second World War, all these institutions emerged. IMF, World Bank created 44 in Bretton Woods, etc., UN, later WTO, etc., etc. This was a consensus on creating institutions for the global world of democratic societies. And with all critique, all in all, it has worked to the benefit of all countries. And this is now at stake. And now even the US, which was in the core of all these global institutions, are putting that into question. Probably in the end, Trump will understand that he destroys the basis of US own success. It was also in the interest, and the IMF is dominated by the US World Bank. So this is not an institution which works to the detriment of the US. But you see, it's at stake. And with the emergence in Bretton Woods, there were 44 countries. Now we have roughly 200 independent countries. So the world is much more complex. The center of economic activity, to a large part, has moved to Asia. And institutions so far don't yet reflect this change. So on the global level, I think the world is hopefully searching for sustainable constructions of institutions. We might either have new institutions, or in the IMF, for example, voting rights must reflect the changed economic weight of countries. And I think it's very bad that the US, etc., is resisting that, because then you create an incentive to circumvent, to create new competitive institutions in Asia or somewhere. Moving to Europe, in the same sense, Brexit is really a watershed. European economic integration after the Second World War had only one direction: ever closer integration with more and more countries, starting with 6, with the community on coal and steel, ending in 27 countries for the EU. So it was enlargement and also closer cooperation, one direction. And Brexit has totally stopped that in a brutal way. This raises many questions, many concerns that this might cause contagion. Others might follow the UK. I think this is a misinterpretation, because countries like Hungary will see how complicated. I think even Le Pen might, in case, horrible. But Trump, etc., also understood that it's better to have EU working and not being in shatters. So I think this will be not an invitation for others to join the UK. I think economists have again made a big mistake, and this is not good for the profession, making forecasts on what might change, what might happen to growth, employment in the short time. Nobody can predict that. But in the long time, I think for me it's very clear, it will be bad for UK, it will be bad for the EU. There will be no winners. We have to limit damage. This is the message. But I think contagion will not happen because with all critique of the EU, I've contributed to that, we should not forget, finally, it has created a single market for 27 countries so far, more than 500 million people, the biggest market in the world, a peaceful environment. And you mentioned my book on the euro, in which I was very critical. I saw the crisis coming. It was written in 2007, before the financial crisis, but it was obvious that we were moving in the direction of a big crisis. And when I had read through the manuscript again, and I thought, I don't want to conclude with this dire message, but I could not change, could not say at the end it's all very good when I made so many critical remarks. So how to solve that? And then an episode came to my mind. It was in the first year of the ECB. We had always lunch together in the board. On a day, it was just Christian Noé, the vice president coming from France, and me, and we talked also about families, etc. And then we discovered that at the same time, when his father was prisoner of war in the German camp, my father was member of the occupation army in France. And the sons of the two men who could have shot each other were sitting in the Euro Tower working on a European project. So I think we have to never forget that. But this is not a reason to agree to bad economic policies. No?